Not too long ago in San Francisco, Claire George, working by day as a consultant and by night as a singer in a band, was at a crossroads. Disenchanted with the corporate life, newly single, and pulled from within to strike free, embrace solitude, and explore her music ambitions with more rigor and autonomy, she chose to leave the band and the Bay, a world to her that was feeling small, and instead headed north, to a house in the woods in Seattle, where she lived for a year and a half, learning to produce her music while reflecting and writing and singing under the rainy trees.
And even though it was frustrating and it was bad at first, and it was, the songs themselves were, I was like, I'm never gonna get there. And I'm just gonna keep doing this, and I'm gonna live in this dark place alone and not have anything to show for it.
Along with the self-doubt, the solitude that seemed so appealing brought its own challenges.
I would have crazy nightmares, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and there would be this feeling that I can't articulate. I can't seem to figure out how to articulate it, but the best thing that I could say to describe it was a feeling of groundlessness.
Claire persisted, though, and emerged from the woods stronger and calmer, recharged and refocused, and lucky for us, bearing gifts. Nearly 30 new songs, 5 of which making up her recently released Bodies of Water, an EP that put her on tour this winter, 2019, after landing her a deal with New York-based Casbah Records last fall. The world that once felt small is not so anymore. Now living in Los Angeles, it's a wide world and a wild one for Claire, who's full steam ahead.
You're not gonna know how to do it until you do it. Learning is a lifelong activity. If there's something that you want to do and you don't start it today, you're just another day older when you start it eventually. Right. Stop dragging your feet.
Having generated her own momentum, and now with a trusted team behind her and more music in front, things have only just begun.
It is surreal to have people that I don't know listening to the music. That's mind-blowing for me. That's so crazy. I was sitting in my room alone for so long and always felt like it was just me and my family and friends. Maybe this is the chapter where I start to allow myself to believe that there will be people listening, and hopefully that they will come along on that journey with me.
Without further ado, check.
How close?
Drum roll. The talented,
Bow.
the radiant,
Okay, that's.
Claire George. You're a mic professional, so.
I'm a microphone professional. This is my job title. That's my LinkedIn skill set.
You were saying you were a perfectionist.
I'm a perfectionist in a lot of ways, but I've had to let go a lot of that in order to finish projects.
Yeah.
For me, I don't have the technical background and skill set as much, and I just don't have that much experience engineering. Mm-hmm. So in order to be a perfectionist, it would take me a lot longer to be able to. Yeah. So I had to let go of some of that in order to make this record, and then give up control and let somebody else do the perfectionistic kind of audio engineering things that I'm not taking on at this moment.
Yeah.
But that was a big lesson for me to learn.
Must be kind of nice to forego the control, or at least control of that.
It was hard. It was really hard to do, but then once I did it, big, amazing release. Yeah. Yeah, to trust someone else and put your work into their hands is, when I set off to make this record, there's a big part of me that, it was I had to do it myself, and there's a lot of ego in that, and there's a lot of, I felt like I needed to prove something, sort of, but now, I don't know, I think it's just I learned a lot through the process, and I'm a lot happier to just give up control now, it allowed me to I had to do this, I think, and get it out of my system and realize that we can't do it alone,
Do this being the record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking with my label yesterday. We had a meeting, and we had a really good talk, and I think it starts with me, I think it should start with me. And then getting songs in the same process sort of is the same, just like being open and ready to give up control and collaborate sooner. But yeah, I think I'm going to just, for the next record, I'm going to make demos, get them 50 to 60 to maybe 80% of the way there, and then bring in someone else who can, another set of ears, another like experience. I just have to find the right people to work with.
And that comes down to taste.
Yeah, and just chemistry.
Yep.
I think having the right person that you can trust, that is open to feedback and doesn't take it personally. Mm-hmm. There's like a lot of giving up the ego required.
Yeah, because it comes from a personal place, the things you're creating.
Yeah.
And so feedback's harder on those things.
So, but also if I'm working with someone else, I need to be able to like say, this doesn't feel me, but I also want people to be able to push back, and that's important to me too, is like the feedback loop and kind of having it be a two-way street. Mm. So that's like important in a working relationship when it comes to this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Claire.
Yay!
Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
Good to see you.
You too.
And your show tomorrow, Monday, December 18th.
No,
December.
Which
December
day
10th.
Is it? 10th?
10th tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah. Rough trade, people. Well, it'll already have happened.
I can't believe the time.
Yeah.
It's the 9th.
Who's that little guy?
This is a picture of a Pomeranian. Her name is Cece, and I follow her on Instagram, and she is my background on my phone. That's good. She's my spirit animal. Mm-hmm. She's wrapped in a towel, and she's very cozy.
Keeps it real.
She's been keeping me warm, in New York.
It's freezing.
Yeah, it's very cold.
How does it feel leading up to the show?
It's really exciting. I had, as you know, I had a little warm-up show on Friday at Noya House. And
great show.
Thank you. I'm excited for tomorrow because I think I'll feel, even more adjusted to the time zone, feel a little bit more energetic. And I'm excited, and I'm excited to see the other band again. Mm-hmm. They're one of my favorite bands, and they're pals, so it'll be a good little reunion. And it's crazy. It's exciting that like this is my first New York show, and I get to open for a band that has, it's sold out ahead of time.
What's that band?
They're called Drama.
Drama.
They used to be called the Drama Duo, and then they changed to just Drama, which is cool. All caps.
Yeah, all caps.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your show on Friday was so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was a proud friend.
Oh.
Yeah, because I've been listening to your music and I knew you were doing it, but there was something about seeing it in person.
Thank you.
And you're very good.
Thank you.
And it became real.
Thank you.
More real for me.
Cool.
Being there.
Yeah. I wish there was a better way for me to like translate the energy of the live show into the recordings, And I wonder if that's something that I can find a way to do more.
I don't mean it like the energy's not in the recording.
Yeah.
It's just like knowing you and seeing you do it.
Yeah.
Cool. But congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's inspiring. And you also got a record deal recently.
Yes, I'm working with a label here called Cassine.
In New York, based in New York.
Based in New York, yeah.
Well, it's a major milestone.
Thank you.
To get a label.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to be working with them. They're very much on the same page and have mutual goals in mind and similar tastes. It's just like finding any collaborator,
Yep.
And it's been really exciting.
Nice. And now they can help you keep the momentum up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small label, and they have a lot of experience in the industry. They have like a great taste and kind of are willing to be creative voices in the room. And which is something I'm really excited about because I think I was doing it alone for so long, and then my manager came in and he's been really great as well. But it's just every new member of the team has been really just adding so much, and so that's really great. And
nice.
And then they can connect me with other people to write with and produce with, and do creative direction. And so it's a matter of resources too, and exposure, and just building a team out. So it's it's really exciting.
Fun progression.
Yes.
And so you were doing it all by yourself until recently?
So for the first, when I left San Francisco over 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, I moved home and was just learning how to produce and write.
Home is where?
Seattle. On my own. And I did that for about 1.5 years before I brought anyone else on to help with the project. Wow. And then my friend Cassia, who's an engineer and producer in Seattle, she came on and helped me finish the record.
Gotcha.
In the last 6 months, 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, but there's music in San Francisco too, right?
Yeah. So I was working. Yeah, I was in a band for 4.5, 5 years called Heart Watch in San Francisco.
The Tropics.
And then we were called the Tropics before. Yeah, we had a name change situation, and then I left San Francisco. Yeah. And moved home, and it was.
Did you go back to school? Didn't you?
I took classes online through Berkeley.
Yeah, I thought I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, it was great.
It was for music stuff.
Yeah, music production and sound design. Cool. So I was directly learning how to make these songs, basically. Cool. Yeah.
Was it helpful?
It was very helpful. Yeah.
That's nice to put that in context of what you're working on.
Totally. I'm always interested in taking more classes and expanding. Same. Yeah, it's great to do.
Especially if there's something bigger that you're applying the learning to.
Yeah, and even if sometimes the material doesn't feel like it's directly related to what you want to be doing, it's it finds ways of being relevant.
You connect the dots.
Yeah. And so, I think it's been tremendously helpful for me to have some proper instruction. And also, I think when I quit my job, I left. I was doing consulting independently, and they wanted me to come on. My one client wanted me to come on full time, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted the flexibility of being a consultant independently, and so it was just kind of time for me to leave. And so I, having no structure, having no job, and kind of diving into, I think a lot of people think that it's a glamorous thing to quit your job and just pursue art, which it is, and it is beautiful, but it is also very difficult. And it's a big transition. It's scary. Yeah. There's the financial side, but then what people don't actually think about is, you go from being in an environment where you're around people all the time. You are expected to show up at work at this time.
You're getting feedback.
Yeah, you're getting feedback. It's a big change to wake up in the morning and have to make up what your responsibilities are for that day.
Well, I was going to say, you can tell, one of the easy things about being in a conventional job. Not that the work you're not working hard, but it is easy in a way because you know what you have to do, and you get feedback on if you're doing it right.
Right.
Whereas if you go on your own, particularly with the arts, I imagine, you're kind of in a hole.
Yeah, and it is
especially
subjective.
When you're working on something you aren't even able to get any feedback on until it's done, which takes a long time.
Totally.
There's a lot of bravery there to even try, or and that was one of the things I was moved by, interested in, is that transition, the discovery that you needed to do that, and then leading up to that.
It sort of started. When I didn't start making music until after college.
Yeah.
When I was little, I wanted to be a singer, and I had some piano instruction growing up, but never played in bands. I was in middle school choir, but that was it. High school was all sports and studying, and so was college. And in college, I really became interested in indie music, and also in high school, I started to really love to curate my own playlists and CDs, and I would give CDs out to the people in my sports teams, and I became obsessed with music. Sort of as my own thing. And I didn't really grow up in a musical house either. And so I sort of when I got to college, started exploring that and getting really excited about, developing my own tastes. And, I was a little bit of a late bloomer there with my musical tastes. And then, the same thing after college. At the end of college, I started to be interested in singing again, but I was kind of hiding from that.
You knew you had pipes though.
I didn't know
really
that I could sing. I knew that I had pretty good pitch.
Yeah.
But I didn't I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't have I don't know. And so I remember driving in a car with someone my senior year, and he was like, I was like playing some of my favorite songs, and we were going camping with a bunch of people, and he's like, he was in a choir. He was like, you really need to sing. Yeah. And I was like, oh, maybe. Yeah, and so then like the wheels started turning, and then, you know, I was continuing to do like the corporate professional thing. And I moved to San Francisco because I fell in love with it there. And I think being in college, I felt like in a way I was kind of, I had created a life for myself, and that was like, I was interested in music, but music wasn't my thing. You know, I had a lot of friends in college who were in the music program, in the music industry program, and had a lot more experience than me. So it was like very intimidating for me to kind of like think about that as a thing. But then when I moved to San Francisco, it was sort of like this new like start again. And it was the chance to do something different. And so I was working for a large accounting firm, and I was taking the CPA exam, and I basically didn't go out for the first year I lived in San Francisco, and I was like going crazy, just like working so hard, and I felt like I needed another outlet. And so I just went on Craigslist and like sent somebody an audio file of me singing, and then met people through Craigslist, and then eventually that became the Tropics, and then
through Craigslist that happened.
Nice. And then we just like kept developing the band. There were like a couple of rotations of members, and then we would play all the time. And
nights and weekends.
Yeah. We would play twice a week after work because everyone had to work, and then we would play shows whenever we could. But I felt we were starting to get to a point where I wanted to put more into it, and I knew that what I was doing wasn't the right thing. Like, I didn't want to be at a giant corporation. I felt like, it just didn't feel like I didn't fit in with the people I was working with either, and it just became really apparent to me. And, you know, it was pretty dumb of me and wild to just, like, quit. But I had been taking the CPA exam, and I was like, why am I doing this? You know, and when you just know something's right. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm pretty young. I have some money saved. I'm just going to do this and work some random job. And it really didn't take me that long because I was just like in a place where I really wasn't happy. I just like was like, okay, I'm just going to do something else. So then I quit. And
took the leap.
And that part for me was, it had to happen regardless. I mean, I could have been a little bit wiser about it, but I just was so ready.
You knew.
And I just worked like odd jobs and worked on van stuff for a couple of years, and we had some great success locally. I think we did really well, and I'm glad that I did that. And then you know, I was like, okay, well, I'm living in San Francisco, and I need to get some part-time work doing consulting somehow. And that's sort of how I keep things afloat, is like having the ability to do some side project work. So that's great.
You're still doing that.
I'm not doing it right now, but I might be when I get back to LA.
Cool.
But it's sort of off and on. Like when I can get consulting work, I'll do it. And
so that's like business consulting.
It's really niche, but it's forensic accounting kind of. But I'm actually looking to sort of expand more into I want to help some music labels and just small businesses with their accounting, but they don't really teach you that in college. Specifically, you're learning like corporate tax, and so I have some meetings when I get back to LA, and I'm gonna maybe just like do some small business accounting.
Rockstar / forensic accountant. I was watching you perform the other night, and I was like, jaw dropped. And I was like, I thought she was an accountant.
Thank you.
It's so you are. You can be both.
I technically am. But I'm like, you know, I don't have a lot of history in working in small business or like tax or personal accounting. So, so that's what I want to do. I want to be able to help, you know, other creatives and everyone who has like these small businesses popping up to just put some stuff into place.
Sure.
And that would be, you know, I think everyone in the music industry, a lot of it works on like a bartering system, you know, having creative talents. Like, I'll cut your hair if you know, like do a photo shoot with me. And I think that would be something that I could help, and then I could do consulting.
Nice. Cool. So when you moved back to Seattle, and you spent 2 years working on this new record.
Yeah. I wrote...
Bought my own copy. Bodies of Water. Beautiful.
Thank you.
5 songs.
Yes, short. I wrote about 30.
30?
Yes, but they were all kind of like bits and pieces and kind of at various stages. So I got them all into a certain place where they were, I think I had like 25. And then I just picked my 5 favorites.
5 favorites.
Worked with Kessia to pick those, and we just polished them up, and yeah.
And you said there's another one coming, another record in the works, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's sort of beginning stages, so I'm demoing everything out.
Yeah.
So I'm demoing more songs and writing, and
nice.
I'm hoping to put. I think we will put another EP out in the next 6 months.
Nice.
And then probably an LP either at the end of the year or the beginning of 2020.
What is the difference?
LP is like a full length,
Full
so
length.
like probably 10 songs.
Okay.
EP 5.
5.
To me, it's important to have it feel cohesive and to feel like there's a world that you're creating, and the songs should, like, I want it to feel like a body of work,
Yeah.
That feels cohesive and has a through line somehow. And so I have been thinking about different ideas for what I want, like, my first full length record to sound like and be about and everything. And I have some of the songs that I was playing on Friday, and I just don't think that they fit in. So I think I'll put like an infrastructure around how I'm going to write the album, and sort of like put boundaries and parameters and sort of like an idea ahead of time, be more intentional about it. And then some of the songs that I've just written, I think we will release as singles or as an EP, because I still want to play those songs out and I want to share them with the world. And I think, I think they have potential to be on a release in the next 6 months. So,
cool.
I've been playing a lot of those out for a while. So I'm like ready to record and finish them. And
get ready, world. Some great songs. I also love the art, all the photos and videos and stuff. It's really cool.
My really good friend Tim
has nicely done.
He's great. Yeah, he and I just did a few trips to Palm Springs and just got a bunch of stuff and kind of worked with the label to make a plan and everything. And
tennis courts, golf.
Yes, golf courses, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's very distinct.
Thank you.
You can tell it's.
Yeah.
Talk about a through line. It's very specific.
Yeah. And that's something I'm excited to have. I mean, I think I was lucky to have some really amazing collaborators to work on this EP, and who helped me create sort of this visual package that came together really nicely in a short amount of time, which usually it takes 6 months, I think, to get like all the assets.
Yeah.
But I think the label will also be really instrumental in helping kind of like facilitate a lot of that.
And then they'll have their input there, obviously.
Yeah. But I'll get to work with, I think, some sort of, I'll get to work on the whole package. And I'm excited about making a full length. I think it'll be a fun project.
Yeah. Well, cool. And tell me more about, because there's a really romantic, I think, story in the transition and the moving home and the kind of uncertainty. Yeah. Right, I imagine, of going on your own and moving away from the city and doing this thing that's, unconventional and sort of nebulous.
I was in the middle of so many changes 2 years ago. The band was kind of breaking up. I went through a personal breakup, and I was ready to leave San Francisco for the first time. And I just the world there just started to seem small to me, and I felt like I needed to go recharge my batteries kind of and just like figure something new out. And I had wanted to produce. There had been a dream of mine. And I had started working on some stuff, like very elementary production and stuff back when I was living in San Francisco. I played a few solo shows, but I moved home because I had been toying with that idea for a long time of going back. And then I had some family stuff happen too, where I felt like I needed to go be closer and help some of my family members out. And so I just knew it was the same thing when I like quit my first job. I just sort of knew, and and it was just time. And I knew that I wasn't growing anymore, and that I was frustrated and feel like I was spinning my wheels. And so, it was just time, and it was scary. And I remember my parents being really worried about me because, even like a year into this, they're like, everyone's like, where's the record? What's happening? But it's like, sound design, that kind of stuff takes a really long time to learn. There's a huge learning curve. It's most people go to school or work in professional studios for years before they feel comfortable doing it. And so I knew that myself, but it was hard to kind of like explain that to people. And I kind of just had to put up with it and just like keep my head down. But
I'd imagine that's kind of frustrating to you.
Yeah, it was, it's fine. It's just like a matter of, people not understanding the process. Right. And I didn't know either. I definitely had some scary moments where I was like, I don't know what this is. What am I doing?
Right.
Sort of banging your head against the wall, but then you just keep pushing. But I was really isolating. I wasn't working. I was living off my savings and was really dedicated to getting up and just writing
all day.
And taking my classes. But that even is isolating because I was living alone. But then I was doing online classes. So it was sort of like I wasn't really going out of the house. So it was like sort of cooped up. But it was an intense time in my life, and it was the most intense time of my life, I think.
Emotional too.
Extremely. And the weather in Seattle doesn't help. I was like, it was hard being isolated in the rain, and it's dark up there early, and so you're just like, what am I doing? Right. But I knew that I had to finish it, and then when I was ready to leave, I knew that I had to go to LA. I was like, I have a lot of close. I was so sick of not having that many close friends, and I do have good friends in Seattle, but I just, very few of them are doing creative pursuits, and so I was like, I need to be back around. I think that was the thing I missed most was my community. I'd left my community in San Francisco, and I missed that deeply. And so, in February, I decided that I was going to move to LA about 6 months before I did. I was like, I don't think I can live in Seattle for another winter. And so at the beginning of this year, I moved down to LA. I did like a meditation thing in January and then moved down in February.
Cool. What is the meditation thing?
It's called Vipassana. And it's like a 10-day silent meditation. And it's a Buddhist organization that has them all over the world. Free to attend.
Free?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's donation based. You can serve too as a form of payment. But I found out from my good friend about it, and I knew that I had to do something like that because I needed to like have a sort of a cleansing experience, and I was perfectly timed right before my move to LA. And that was really a transformative and moving experience for me. And I would recommend it to anyone who can get a chance to do that and take the time off. I know it's hard for most people to be able to do that, but meditation was something that really helped me. I had tried to meditate before, and I had like an iPhone app. But that was like, the phone was the problem. Like I needed to get away from the phone. And I never really worked for me. It does for some people, but I needed like a full course. And this course is, you have to go for they won't let you do a shorter course until you've done a full day, 10 day.
Yeah. I'd love to do something like that because I'm, I guess like you were before you took the more serious step where listening to things on my phone and learning about it and trying it and figuring out a way I can do it. Fit it into my life now. But I really enjoy it, and I love the idea of it.
Yes.
And for the minimal experience that I've noticed why, seen value from it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, one of the things they talked about in the program is a lot of people, you know, talk about meditation sort of like intellectually, and people read a lot about it, and then, but don't really get into the actual practice. And it's the practice and the experiential, the experience of meditating that really like, and especially when you do a course like that where it's 10 days, it was so intense for everyone. It's an really intense experience. You don't have any other inputs in 10 days. You don't have your phone, you can't write, you can't speak, you know? And there's just something remarkable that happened to me, at least, where my mind quieted for the first time in my adult life, and I felt almost like a little kid again. And I was just so at peace after that for a very long time. And I've noticed, you know, I didn't really drink for the first 6 months of this year. And then,
that's nice.
I just felt like I didn't need to. And I really want to go back. And I know I just need to get back into my practice more, because I've also been a little bit rusty about it, which is the whole point of it, is to be consistent. And I just noticed some of my old anxieties creeping up and everything that kind of like dissipated when I was really dedicated to it. So when I get back to LA, or maybe even starting tomorrow, I can just focus on my practice and get back into it, because it really did change my life in the time that I was like focused and dedicated on the practice.
That's nice. Well, it's nice that even if you've slipped, to know that that's there. And it's returnable.
Exactly.
Able to return to. You said you felt like a kid again. It reminded me, there's I think a Buddhist term, shoshin, which is the beginner's mind.
Really?
And which is kind of what a kid is. You know, anytime you approach something new, you're a beginner and you have a fresh sort of inquisitiveness. And I think that that happens when you're creating something too.
Totally.
It calls that forth, which I think is why it feels good.
Yeah, I've been listening to this record this year by this band called Let's Eat Grandma. And the way that they write songs, and just like the songs on their album, have been a reminder to me to be like that, because the way they write is so free and so like open. It's only, and they're really young. They're like they're maybe 18 now, but the record's amazing. And,
cool.
But I'm realizing that there's so many things that in the creative process, if you aren't able to pretend to be free like a child and to not have expectation and not be thinking about all these things, I feel like they have like a beginner's mind, and it's sort of like, oh my gosh, they can just, I don't know, they just write about these things in such a creative way that reminds me of myself when I first sat down at the piano to write my first song, where I was like, it was very much like there was no expectation. I think once you like start to put out music and have people who are following your music, that changes things inherently. But like, you know, when I first bought a piano in San Francisco, I was like writing these really weird, crazy storylines, which I don't know if they'll ever see the world, but it was like this really cool beginner's mind. And I wish I could, I hope I can somehow find a way to tap into that again to write for the next record.
Well, that's nice. And there's something kind of sacred about childhood in that way, where you don't have a premise of outcome. You know, it's just like pure creativity, where you're not, hopefully you don't have a reason to be worried about what's going to come out or what people are going to think, or even if you're going to show it to people. You know, and so there's a purity there that is compelling. And it's nice when people are willing to just openly put it out.
It's not self-conscious.
So now that you've gone through it, because you're kind of from a spectator's view, like you've kind of at a new phase, having gone through the choice to do it, the following through on doing it, getting a label. Now you're touring, and you know there's a lot of momentum. What does it feel like, or what's different? What did you expect? Is it what you expected? What's next?
Somebody was like, I'm so grateful to be where I am now, and I'm so excited, and it's crazy to have a label behind me, because they like inspire me to see a future in which things continue to, you know, and it's like, sometimes I have imposter syndrome.
Yep.
I feel like, oh my gosh, they're going to notice that I'm not, like, I'm going to make the next set of demos and suddenly they're going to hate it, you know? And my manager's like, that's not going to happen. Like, it's still coming from you and everything. But that's like a legitimate thing that I think a lot of artists deal with. But I think being able to continue the momentum and also survive financially is the next concern that will probably hit me in the next few months. So I'm trying to like find a balance of doing some work on the side, but that's constant. That'll be always a thing, I think. But it does feel exciting in the fact that I do have a bigger network now.
Yep.
And having put out this thing, it's kind of tripping me out a little bit because I've had such a good team behind this, and I'm like scared for what, like I've been lucky to have really great articles and people behind the music, and I don't know what will happen next, but I hope that I can keep that up. But it's sort of like once you have like one positive thing, it's like you kind of, if it's not as positive the next time, am I gonna, panic? But it feels really exciting, and I'm really excited to get back into a place where I can be writing every day. Yeah. And so I've been sort of the last month basically working on I was trying to do everything at once, and so I have a tendency to do that. And then I was booking sessions and trying to do all this stuff, and I was like, okay, why don't I just focus on what's immediate?
One thing at a time.
Yeah. And so I've been really trying to be present with these moments, and the head of the label, Jeff, was talking to me after the show, and he was reminding me, he's also a meditator, which is great, and he was reminding me to kind of enjoy these moments at the beginning.
Good. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because it's great, and I feel it is surreal for sure to have people that I don't know listening to the music. That's what's crazy to me. Like, there was somebody at the show that I've never met who is a fan of music, and that's mind-blowing for me. That's so crazy, like I was sitting in my room alone for so long and just always felt like it was just me and my family and friends, and I always felt like, I still feel kind of that way, that's like who and maybe people will like the show, but like, I don't know. So maybe this is the chapter where I start to allow myself to believe that there will be people listening, and hopefully that they will come along on the journey with me. But I'm excited to tour more and get to meet people and go to new cities. I'm going to Boston for the first time this week.
Nice.
And there will be a lot of new experiences. But I'm really trying to enjoy the moment.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just asked you what's next, but it's I think as an ambitious person, you're sort of, you've found success because you do look to the future, but to try to balance what's next and thinking about that, but also like celebrating and patting yourself on the back and enjoying the ride. Yeah. And sort of like that'll always be something to balance. Totally. Because you can't go, if you go too far in either direction, you'll be not in the best place.
Totally. Yeah, it's a tricky balance, but I think I think that's also what the team is for, is to remind me. Definitely. And, it was great to have talked to the label yesterday and just talk to them about, what do you see as the next steps? Yeah. And for me, it's like we kind of came up with a roadmap. And so that allows me, I'm like rocket. That's awesome. Like, okay, I'm going to get back to LA, spend the next 10 days writing intensely. Right. And just, that's it. Yeah. And in the next couple of months, every moment that I have, just writing, and continuing to develop ideas and what the sound will be and the world it will all live in. Yeah. That's so exciting, because a couple of things, like one thing at a time. Also, I imagine meditation will help you with that. Because that's kind of what it's all about. Yeah. Do the thing, like tend to the part of the garden that you can touch. Yeah, exactly. Like, in having a team where you can divide responsibilities and leverage people's talents and interests to push the whole thing forward. And then break stuff out, like, next 10 days, all I have to think about is writing. Yeah. And you don't have to really worry about, like, I have this consulting gig, and I gotta do the artwork, and I gotta book a show, and and then you kind of don't
do anything as well as you could have.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what he said to me yesterday.
Yeah.
He was like, Claire, like, I want you to focus just on this. And that was like such a relief for me. It was like a beautiful thing to hear that. It was so empowering. It was like, okay.
Like, heck yes.
Yes, I can do that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to wrap up the songs that I have been playing out live. I want to spend the next couple weeks just like demoing them out, making sure. I mean, I have them demoed out for the most part, but I want to, you know, I always redo the production on the songs like 5 times, you know? Yep. And so going back to all of them and then seeing what they seem like together sequenced and
Cool. Which parts of the process do you gravitate towards?
I really like, the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to start a song and so hard to finish one.
Oh, interesting.
So hard. Yes.
Why is that?
As a perfectionist, it's never done. And being able to say, and, you know, when you're working on a song for 12 hours, it's different from sitting there and writing a song on the piano or on the guitar. If you're like working in Ableton, which is like the computer, you know, there's so many tools at your disposal and so many different sounds. Like there's a whole world in there. There's a universe and trying to pick which sounds go where and, you know, this doesn't sound right here. I want a different instrument. But being able to have that many tools is almost like crippling sometimes.
Yeah, overwhelming.
So yeah, I think a lot of people write. I want to write a lot on the piano and on guitar for the next record, and then like work it into the computer because sometimes you can get trapped on a loop of 30 seconds for 3 days. Yeah, you know.
And so then, when if it's never done, when is it done?
I think that what I learned through making this is it's time to ask for help.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's about setting deadlines and saying, "Here's what I have here," and do I feel comfortable enough to turn this in as a demo? And is this something that I like enough? Because you can tell at the beginning, I think when the vocal comes in, I know whether or not I like the song. The way it develops, the way the writing is, I know when it feels authentic. Yeah. And maybe the production doesn't sound quite right, but I always know it feels honest.
Yeah, honest. Yeah. You can tell that in your lyrics, and you're a great writer.
Thank you.
And the lyric the other night about the shoulder blade in the moonlight.
Oh.
That was nice.
Thank you.
They all were. But you can tell they're thoughtful.
Thank you.
And they're well done.
Thank you.
And they're, you said it, authentic. Which is hard with creative writing. To not have it be verbose, overly verbose, or melodramatic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you seem to walk the line nicely.
Thank you. It's always, yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's funny the way things come out, though, too. There is like a lot of like channeling that happens of the subconscious, you know, and sitting on I think actually what I would like to do, I'm spending some time, I'm actually going to Hawaii for a little bit.
Fun. When?
For New Year's.
Sweet.
Around that time, yeah. And so I'll have some time, like, I kind of want to be away from my computer then. Yeah. And, like, write on the guitar.
Yeah. Good spot to skip the computer.
Yeah, exactly. Get off the screen for sure. And so I want to, I think it'll be cool to write on instruments because there's something about the tactile feeling of something. There's some sort of like channeling and it really comes out differently. And a lot of time when I write on guitar, it becomes a folk song, but but it'll be interesting to just like push that and see what happens.
Cool, yeah. So, Claire, the other night you played keyboard, guitar, vocals, and dancing machine.
Exactly.
Do you do anything else?
No, not really.
So you can play piano.
Yeah, I play piano.
Yeah.
Piano's my main.
Yeah.
I play some guitar, but I'm mostly like a chord person on guitar. I'm not.
Would you ever do a show with like a grand piano?
I would love to be able to do that. Yeah. That's like the thing. I've been struggling with that because I play synthesizer. I have like synthesizer.
Right.
I don't know if that counts, but
that counts. Of course.
The piano being the main instrument, but you can't get the right sound. You can't get the right sounding fake piano. There's nothing like a real piano.
Yeah.
and trying to play piano on stage. I mean, you just don't get that many opportunities anymore to play like a grand piano or even, you know. So I've always wanted, you know, I've like thought about like pushing guitar further because, you know, it's really easy to carry with you. Yeah. It's super, you know, and it's easy to write songs on guitar. Like, I think it's really, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something about that where maybe it's the beginner thing as well too. Yeah. Like I only know a couple chords, so when you have limitations, I think it's good.
Yeah.
And you can like work within those limitations.
Absolutely. Yeah, the constraint becoming the platform that you know, move from.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to, like, you're writing a song, you have an idea for it, stemming from, I imagine, personal experience or questions that you're asking yourself, and then is there a specific process, or is it different for each song, or
it's different each time? Yeah. Like some of the songs I'm writing now, I've never done this before, where I write backwards, really forwards, where I write the song first lyrically, and then
you fit the music,
and then I make it, which is so much harder, I think, because you have to find the melody, you have to like fit it into chords, and I've always done it the other way. Like with the band, we would do the music first, and I would sort of like
fit words into it.
Yeah, fit little melodies in, and then it was like a puzzle piece, which I love. I think it is like a fun thing to do. Yeah. But I think when it comes to writing something, I don't know. The process is different every time.
Yeah.
And there's like one line that I want to put down.
Yeah.
And it starts with that, or I have a chord that I like, or I make some weird loop in Ableton and I sing over it. And that's usually how the process works.
Gotcha.
Like with Orbits, I had sort of an idea going into the song about the idea of sort of like the universe bringing two people together, kind of like, but also pulling them apart. And I had been listening to a podcast, shout out, Radio Lab. I think it was Radio Lab, about the Golden Record.
The Golden Record, yeah. Well, so I love that reference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where that kind of came from, that idea. And then...
What was the story there again? They put famous songs on it.
Yeah, it's basically supposed to encapsulate like the entire like humanity.
Right.
And who we are and what we are as the human race, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like babies crying and... But also, no, not even just the human race. It was life on Earth, basically. So I think they had like whale sounds as well.
Oh, cool.
And
then they put like Johnny Be Good on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a nice idea.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It's so romantic.
Yeah.
And so great that it's, you know, this scientific thing that is so romantic.
We're going to take a little break here to enjoy Claire's song Orbits, inspired in part by the story of the Voyager spacecraft launch in 1977, which carried on at 2 golden records containing sounds representing the diversity and culture of life on Earth.
But
What about, so it's obviously challenging to be a creative person in the arts particularly. Hard to know which way to go.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about that now? I know we mentioned it's nice to have a team and you're focused more and you're delineating.
Yeah, I think there is a tendency now that I think this is what happens to a lot of people who've, as they start to get fans or whatever, they start to think about, oh, this feels good. I want to like get more fans, and I want to, it makes you, when you get a little taste of it, it makes you want it more, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, this is a possibility. Like I could maybe make a living doing this.
Yeah. Well, especially when there's validation.
Yes, there's
the
some
world
form
is
of
responding, saying yes.
But I think there's also a tendency to think that because of that, a lot of people push towards the idea of like, okay, well, what do people want?
Right.
Whereas before, it was always coming from a really personal place, a place of solitude, and now I'm wondering, like, there's a part of me that immediately was like, I need to work with all these amazing producers and blah blah blah, and that doesn't mean that I won't work with them, but I'm like trying to rein it in a little bit because I think I need to be mindful of what makes this, why people are receiving it in a certain way. Right. And if I start to make these really poppy tunes because I want to cater to a certain audience, well, that isn't honest. Right. Having a conversation with the label yesterday is good about recognizing what are the parts that people are responding to. Yeah. But that doesn't mean like, oh, cater to them. It means these are the parts of the process that are working for you. And if you want to keep doing it this way, then you should, you know?
Yeah. But it's maintaining the fidelity to your honest, the source.
Yeah, to my style. Yeah. And I think there was a tendency for and I was like, okay, I want to like write with all these people, and I'm probably going to do that for the experience of doing it and seeing how I feel about it. But in my experience so far, I haven't found someone. I've written some songs which I like, but nothing feels wholly me. It's kind of starting with my ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. You mentioned solitude. I'm curious if you're willing to go there. Tell me more about like what you went through during the experience of being in solitude. I asked because when I moved here, I lived alone. I was working for a small company, but I was remote, so I was spending a ton of time alone, and more than I ever had. And I realized that I had never really spent any time alone because I grew up in a family, and then I went to college, and then I lived with roommates, and then you could easily never be alone. Yes. And I enjoyed it. It felt weird, but then I was like, it's weirder that it feels weird to be alone. Yeah. I've never hung out with myself for longer than whatever. And you can kind of avoid that, especially today. But I also found from it for myself that it was like nudging awake something in me, creatively.
Yeah.
Maybe out of boredom, or I don't know why. I'm not a clinician, but I wonder. And I'm just curious what you went through.
I think a lot of artists do that, right? There is like this idea of connecting with yourself in a way, and for me, it was really intense in a dark way, too. I think I experienced there was like trauma and intense experiences that I'd had that I was dealing with simultaneously. And so I was having these really I was living in this big house by myself in like the woods, basically. And I would have like crazy nightmares. And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and there would be this feeling that I can't articulate. I can't seem to figure out how to articulate it. But the best thing that I could say to describe it was like a feeling of groundlessness, but in a way of like, it's like a panic, a feeling like, and I think it stemmed from the fact that I wasn't necessarily connected to anything in particular at the time. Like I had left my community, I had left my job, I left my relationship, I was left my band. So it was like,
you're solo for real.
It was weird. Like you could wake up in the night and feel like it was just the strangest feeling of like falling, kind of. but I think it made me so much stronger to feel like you're falling like that and to still hang on and kind of be like powering through and in that sort of darkness and solitude, knowing that I was doing something that still mattered to me.
Yeah, and that you felt that you were, even though maybe it was scary, you felt it was right.
Yeah, and I couldn't give up.
Yeah, and that you trusted it even though it was uncomfortable.
And even though it was frustrating and it was bad at first and it was... You know, the songs themselves were, you know, I was like, I'm never going to get there, you know, and I'm just going to keep doing this and I'm going to like live in this dark place alone and not have anything to show for it. And that was a fear too.
Yeah. But then another voice that was like, no, you can do it.
Yeah, it was so intense.
Yeah, it sounds it. House in the woods, alone, rainy, dark.
Dark, yeah.
Not knowing what was going to come.
Yeah, and I wasn't seeing people on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It was so dumb. I don't recommend that to anyone. But, you know, I now value my solitude more than ever.
I bet.
And it is...
And you know you can go there.
Yes, and I know that when it is quiet and I can, like, listen to myself better, that's when the best work comes out. And that's why I have a hard time writing in studios and writing with other people. It's like... I can't hear myself speak or think fully. And maybe, you know, like in thinking, that's too much. Like you don't want to think too much. But I think feeling safe even though I was afraid.
Yeah. Well, major growth experience.
Yes, definitely. And I had never been alone either.
Yeah. That's really cool. And then knowing that, maybe you don't need to do that to that level of extremity next time. But like... knowing that maybe the solitude is good. Maybe you protect that on a daily basis for a short amount of time. And then that permeates to the rest of your sort of experience.
Yes.
You know, and figuring out a way to fit it into, you know, a healthier structure.
Yeah.
Rather, you know.
No, totally. And in a shorter amount of time too. I think, I mean, learning, I made so many mistakes doing this, but they were the best because now I feel like I am excited to have that knowledge and experiential knowledge under my belt. Because like, now I know when to call it quits on certain things and let go of things.
Yep.
And that I'm not an expert and it's still going to be incredibly hard work to make the next thing. But I feel like, okay, this was a huge hurdle for me because there was also I think people who, I don't know, for me and like I know a lot of other artists, there was like an uphill battle in my mind also because of the band. And I was like, people are expecting one thing from me. And like all of a sudden I'm like doing my own thing. And like, what are the perceptions going to be like? Are they going to be like, she's some diva. She left the band. But and on top of that, I was afraid. You're like crippling self-doubt about your ability to do the work and have it be good. And so I think just like letting go of that ego and like putting it out, and that was a huge experience for me. And so one of the things we thought about talking about was, you know, what would you recommend for other artists is like let go of things and just trust your instincts for sure. But know when your ego is getting in the way.
I mean, high five. Well, for facing, it's not a small thing to do that, to face your fear and to objectively, you know, make the adjustments that put you in that place of fear and uncertainty and self-doubt, and then to look right at it and say, but it's okay. Like I'm gonna be okay. Yeah. And then you come out, and now you're a new version of Claire.
Yeah. And it's funny too, like, you know, I put my first single out and nothing really happened.
Yeah.
And it was like all that for nothing. It was like, oh, you're just agonizing for so long and no one really cares. It's like, okay, no one's going to care until they care.
Right.
So just keep working and keep sharing. And,
and you care.
Yeah.
You care. That's enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my recommendation for other people. Just put it out there.
Yeah. Just get started.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, start now.
Right.
I remember one person. There's this book, The Artist's Way.
Oh yeah.
And I have tried to do it 5 times, but I never finish
the morning
it.
pages?
Yeah, I do some of the stuff, but I don't. I just a couple of things that they say are who are the people in the past who have kind of stunted you or held you back in some way or kind of told you weren't enough. And I remember somebody telling me, don't start learning how to produce because honestly, if you don't know at this age, then you probably won't know. Which is hilarious. I laughed when it was said to 20s, me. Yeah. But I was just how dare you, first of all. People, learning is a lifelong activity. Yes, and amen. It can always be done. And if you don't start, if there's something that you want to do and you don't start it today, you're just another day older when you start it eventually.
Right.
Stop dragging your feet.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I talked to a friend last night, in fact, and not that I'm necessarily qualified to say this or even by no means an expert, but he was talking about writing a book. And I've tried my hand at writing and have known the experience of going through it and the cathartic effect. And I just said that to him that just get started. And in 100 days, if you write every day, you can get over the imposter syndrome and you say, look, I've done the things that a writer does.
Totally.
And then the more you do that, the more you say you're comfortable telling yourself you're a writer. And maybe no one ever reads it, but now it's there. Yeah. And then now you're at a new phase. Yeah. And you're always learning. And that's the beauty.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting to think back on some of the ways that I felt too at the beginning. It's a lot of that.
And think how far you've come.
Thank you. Yeah. But I have a tendency to over discuss and over plan and over talk about things and then not actually do them. And I think a lot of people think that by saying that they're the plan that they're in partially fulfilling that requirement. Yeah. And it's cool to just have had the experience of just doing it. And I think one of the things that held me back for a long time with all kinds of things in life where I wasn't able to go start something was because I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
But you're not going to know how to do it until you do it. And that was the realization that I had with this and with so many things is you can talk and plan and try and articulate how to do something, but until you mess up and make mistakes and some of them expensive, you're not gonna you'll be so much wiser that's what I learned through making this record is just go into it,
and which is hard. I mean, especially you go to conventional college and you do well and you get a good job and you're making a salary or whatever, getting promoted and everything, you're doing all the right things, but then it's no, this isn't right, and I know that, and bless you for honoring that. And then, but when the move is to do something that no one ever really taught you to do, and there isn't a blueprint for, and it's but I'm still going to do it and I'm going to learn it. It's a different level, and I think a very admirable one of ambition.
Thank you.
And so it's cool. And to your point about learning, and the guy or girl, whoever said that you can't be a producer because you haven't learned it yet. I remember one time before I moved here, I was working at a bar in Boston, in my hometown. And I was working at night at a bar just for fun. I thought it'd be to learn. Yeah. And a good way to be social without being a customer at the bar. Yeah. But anyway, I remember it was one night and there's a band there and the guy was playing the mandolin and he came to get a beer and I had just started playing the mandolin and I was asking him about it. His eyes lit up and he was like, it's kind of the opposite of what you experienced. He was like, you're so lucky, you're so young that you're starting now. I didn't start till I was 50 and now I'm 60. And this guy was ripping the mandolin.
That's amazing.
And he was like, you practice every day. In 10 years, you can be really good. Yeah. And which is obvious.
Yeah, when you say it to someone else, but when you
don't think of it that way. I wish I learned when I was 12, or why didn't I take lessons when I was a kid? Or I guess I'm not a musician. Yeah. And that's just one example, but it's whatever you want to try to accomplish, if you do the things that, in this case, a mandolinist does, the behavior, even if it feels unnatural, eventually
you are that.
You'll pick it up.
You are what you do,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Amen.
It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Claire. I'm so glad we got to do it.
Me too.
Yeah, finally.
Yay.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Excited to spread the word.
Very fun.
Yeah, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this.
Big stuff. Oh,
it's so cool
my pleasure.
to me. You're great. Yay!
That was fun. Cool. Well, I'm excited for you, and I'm inspired by you, and I think
Thank you.
Really great what you've done in such a short amount of time.
Thank you.
And to many more good experiences.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to keep doing this.
Oh, thanks. Maybe for you, you take for granted what you've done, but it is really amazing, and it is a good story to share.
Thank you.
And it's only the beginning, I think.
Thank you. That's my favorite phrase. It's just the beginning.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Here's to it. Awesome.
Well, wait, let's do a little
Yeah.
Closing cheers.
Closing cheers.
Amazing.
So long, listeners.
See ya.
That's it for this episode. That was Claire George, the wonderful Claire George. Thank you all for listening. And thank you, Claire, again for being on the show. That was great. Check out Claire's website at claire-george.com, claire-george.com. The music that you heard on this episode was all from Claire. First song titled Where Do You Go during the introduction, and the second was Orbits, and this one you're hearing now is Second Guesses, all of them off her EP Bodies of Water, which you can find on Spotify by searching Claire George. Thank you again for listening. This is it for episode 1. The Jalapeno is brought to you by my creative partner Aaron Mason and me, and also the artwork by CF Watkins. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time. Looking forward to it. This is Ty McDonald, your host. Take care. Also, take note of Claire's upcoming tour dates and get thee to a show. Wednesday, January 23rd, Atlanta, Georgia, Aisle 5. Thursday, January 24th, New Orleans, Louisiana, Gasa Gas. Friday, January 25th, Houston, Texas at the White Oak Music Hall. Saturday, January 26th in Austin, Texas at Mohawk. Sunday, January 27th at 3 Links in Dallas, Texas. Wednesday, January 30th, Tucson, Arizona at Club Congress. Thursday, January 31st, Phoenix, Arizona, Valley Bar. Friday, February 1st, the Constellation Room in Santa Ana, California. Saturday, February 2nd, the Casbah, San Diego. Wednesday, February 6th at the Echo in LA. February 7th is a Thursday. Find her in San Francisco at the Rickshaw Stop. February 8th, Friday, Barboza, Seattle, Washington. February 9th, a Saturday, Wonder Ballroom in Portland, Oregon. And Sunday, February 10th to finish it off at the Biltmore Cabaret in Vancouver. This is Ty McDonald, your host. Take care.
Just let it slide.